Okay. So, hello, everybody. This is Raven with Anna.
Anna.
Anna, and today we have a guest, first time for us, Simon Gorgia. Did I get it?
Yeah, that's great. That
Good
actually that
enough.
was really good.
Yeah. And when Anna and I first started, we called this the OG girls because we were both open G, but we're actually shifting the name of this series, this human design conversation, to HD human design in real life. And it's been a actually desire of mine for many years, like since even when I was working with John Martin, to have these conversations to bring it to life beyond the book knowledge. So because anytime any of us shares some, it's going to occur. Oh, and I think that's interesting. So, and Simon is a reflector. So we're going to be asking Simon questions about his experience of being reflector, but I don't know him personally. He's actually somebody Anna knows. So why don't you say what you would like to say about meeting
Yeah.
Simon and your
So,
experience or whatever?
mm, yeah. So when I started my YouTube, which is a bit more than a year ago, like every time I had to come up with a topic that, is interesting for me, first of all, to talk about. And it happened that also like somebody came and asked me like would I do a reading for a reflector, and I was like so honest. I was like, I haven't had a personal really like contact to experience what a reflector is, so everything I have to say is actually from the book. And exactly during that time I have met and I started to know a reflector, and I was like, most probably the life answers my request, because I this is the only type that I haven't met personally and haven't really see how these people operate. So I made a video on YouTube about reflectors, and I think this is exactly because it was so genuine, because I was literally in the quest for myself to go beyond the book and to see, how these people actually experience the reality. I guess that was the most popular video on YouTube ever, out of all my videos. And Simon responded and mentioned that he actually wrote to me like, this is exactly, you talk exactly how I feel it, and there are so many things that resonate. And we started our conversation, and I was even more excited that the reflector video brought a real life another reflector to respond to me. That's actually exactly how I imagine the perfect experiment. That's like,
Mhm.
you're talking about it, and somebody tells you that, yeah, that's valid. So we started speaking more with Simon, and I was introducing him to the basic of knowledge about what reflector is, and immediately it wasn't like really me just telling him the information. Like, we were talking, exactly, we were having a conversation. We had a very long, um, let's call it a short version of a reading, but it was a very long conversation that allowed us to see how much Simon already digs it. And there were
Mhm.
so many discoveries, so many confirmations, and we kept this dialogue for quite a while. And I'm so excited because as I tell Simon, okay, meeting a reflector is one thing, and asking a question is one thing, but having somebody who's actually able to observe, already able to detach a bit, already has certain experience of how to share, how to tell these observations. That's like so valuable. And I think I'm so blessed with this whole reflector experience. So and thank you, Simon, for being here and for continuing your sharing with us. And I think the people who exactly on the same quest, because it happens really often that even people who are into human design actually say, I have met only one reflector. There are
Mm.
people who, who know reflectors, who have reflectors in their family, and they're actually searching for information and confirmation of certain information. So I'm very excited that, this talk is going to be quite useful for many people.
Yes. Thank you. And I was just thinking, I actually think I've met 5 reflectors.
Wow.
So, but
That's like, yeah, that's like, wow.
yeah, and part of this came from having introduced a reflector to her design and realizing just like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it seems like to live this, there are 2 options. One is to kind of get very into the book and following the moon. Like there are some characteristics of the reflector that we hear, that the moon, you follow the moon, you make decisions based on a full lunar cycle, you're very attuned to the moon, your aura is like Teflon, and it's always sampling. Now I think my guess is that comes from the G center, having an open G center. We all 3, nobody has a defined G center here, so but an aura that is it's Teflon, and it does things. It closes off or opens or closes, and then you're here to reflect the health of a community. And so the community you're in is really important for your health as well. I have definitely seen that. I've seen a reflector, I think, go off the rails a little bit, not being in a healthy environment. And then there's this idea of, I don't even know where it comes from, and if it's very practical, of about 100 people. So what does that mean? So again, these are great ideas in the book, but how does it actually occur? So the first thing is, when did you learn about your aura type, and what was it like at the beginning? If you
Quite explosive, actually. The timing was the obscurity of it was quite interesting because my friend, it was like 5 years ago, and there were these 2 power couples. It was my best friend and his girlfriend. And his girlfriend was very much into starting her own YouTube channel. She was sort of enhancing her clients to become better at business, more money, more power, all the rest of it. And and my friend Tam was also very much, very business orientated, very much a bit of a life coach, just very much very encouraging to me. For years he was like that. But I sensed a very strong separation between the couple, and they had let's say one was more the atheist and the other one was more religious, and they were having a power struggle. It was almost like a disconnection, and so Vendi, the girlfriend, she took a liking to me because she felt that I was not attached to my friend's dynamics. It was almost like she could see that I was searching for something, and the only thing that she could think of to share was human design, and she just threw a nugget. And I had to kind of figure out the rest myself, and that's where it started, really. It was so about 4 years ago, and since then just slowly taking it in, really. And it's quite fitting what you say about that, because the idea of the experiential aspect really needed to. I really had to take my time with the whole thing, because I couldn't authentically process things if I went back to the book. And I felt that people were profiling reflectors as a very high specific, and it just felt a bit sort of kind of a bit too highlighting. And I've always been quite modest about being in the limelight. Like I'm quite, I have to know that what I know is being delivered in an authentic way before I speak. And but quite, almost controversially, sort of contradictory side of it is I can be quite overzealous and highly spontaneous, and speak before I think, kind of thing. More the reason to process things and take my time with that.
So with regard to the moon cycle and decision making, how has that been? Like, did you dive into that, or did you go more organically?
At first, I wasn't very familiar with the moon cycles up until I'd say about a year or two ago. And I noticed towards the end of the moon cycle, so I'd say about 3 days before the full moon, I would get a massive crash of energy, like just a lack of energy, heaviness, just almost quite, it's quite numbing and overwhelming. And I guess if I go back in time, because I'd always I'd go to yoga, and they would say, well, you can't go to yoga if on a full moon. And so leading up to that day where I thought I was going to yoga, I do recall the same patterns where I would feel quite heavy, and then it would happen, the full moon would happen, and I would feel an instant shift of energy. I'd feel much lighter and more progressive within the hour, or pretty much a few hours after the full moon. It would just turn back into calmness again. So I tested that going out socially, because I figured I'll go to really busy environments like clubbing or dancing, or somewhere where there's a lot of people, and I would literally at midnight, as the moon is shifting from into away from full moon into new moon, I would get a massive burst of energy, and then I could just stay up all night after that.
That's interesting. Did you happen to, I'm just curious, I don't really know how much the real correlation is, but did you check to see if there's a particular gate that was getting activated? I mean, I know, Anna, you've said you have a similar experience approaching the full moon, so I don't know if
I'm very sensitive.
No, not particularly, no.
I'm very sensitive to the full moon. Yeah, I think Simon still doesn't have the knowledge about the gates, and yeah, I think at least I didn't take him there regarding this. So I would like, Simon, if you can, I really love how you describe how you experience different environments and people in the environments, and healthy and not healthy. I absolutely love how you talk about this. Can you give us some of your observations? And I know that you worked in very highly dense environments, like you live in London, so obviously.
Yeah.
Tell us about it, how you sample. Yeah, how do you feel?
Well, I feel collective energy. So I keep going through these experiences where if I'm in a place of volatility where people don't know each other, but they're collectively sharing similar sort of frequency of energy, and it's almost like it's hard to explain. It's like they're collectively sharing something that they don't understand, and it's passing through me, and so it's quite wavy and volatile, and it's almost like they're collectively enhancing that energy, but because they're unaware of what they're doing, it's quite a frantic and random effect. and it just makes me want to retreat, either back to myself. Usually it's back to myself. It's usually being, away from all energy when that happens. And that happens quite frequently. Happens very frequently. I guess understanding the early life phase, like the up to 30, it almost felt like I had an unlimited, untapped supply of sort of experimentation, and I could endure even the most frantic collective of energies, especially when they're sort of unaware, unknown to each other, and that was almost like unlimited. As soon as I hit 30s, it would the cup would empty very quickly. So yeah, quite an interesting switch. I really it almost felt like a light switch when that happened. So I think it is quite accurate through that reading.
So going on to the roof, that's interesting. I'm a generator by personality. I have a reflector body. Which I'm still, when I first heard that, I'm like, what does that mean? But I'm starting to get a sense of it even for myself. And I'm just thinking back to when I was on the roof, I got sick, and that kind of made me, I got a intestinal disease that required I retreat. So,
oh wow. Yeah, that's intense.
it was 7 years. I was 36. So I was well into the on the roof phase, but it's just an interesting thing that your body, like, almost like you had to collect all that weirdness, it sounds like. Then you said you could endure it. And then it was okay, that's enough.
Yeah, it did feel necessary. I didn't feel resentful towards things when it became that next phase where I wasn't able to it's strange. It's a relief that the cup is being emptied, because of course I get to tune into myself more. It's health wise, it has been quite testing, though. I have to, like, there have been health aspects in the more recent years that that's sort of also tested my ability to sort of not know what works and what doesn't work, more so more physically embodied. It's it's something I hadn't really had to deal with up until that point.
Do you think your recent small injuries are also suggesting that maybe you need to change the environment?
Yeah. It's more about the extreme change of environment that brings it on. It's almost like this eagerness to get back out there, and then and not respecting the solidarity that comes with this next phase that I'm in. And I'd say I'm through the mid phase of that cycle, and it's almost like in denial of the fact that I have to get through it to come out the other side. So I do feel, but I've accepted that now, and so the denial's not there, and so I'm finding, you could say, strategic ways to implement my physicality of how I implement myself without going overboard, without over experimenting, and sort of just basically learning to get to know myself on a deeper level. The shadow work has been a huge aspect of that over the last 10 months or so. Less is more. Over conflicting information that seems to skew my ability to tune into myself, overly linguistically favored through mindful forms of activities, and I had to let go of logic and let go of mind, and just be more suggestively attuned to just environmental factors. It's very much yeah, it's
And I don't think I've heard it yet. So I totally get about the city, the energy of crowds. I used to be able to. How about healthy environments? Like, do you have an example of how it affects you when you're in a place that just feels juicy? I mean, one of the, a signature, they say the signature of the reflector is surprise. What does that mean?
yeah, yeah, it's quite broad. Like, I almost feel like when I get an introductory sort of, because I feel like I need to bounce off energy from others, even if even though I'm in a more recollected phase, I still need those little pockets of energy that gets me into an environmental comfort zone. It's almost like a transitional sort of, where it sort of transmutes into a sort of a direction that I would need to take to find a healthier environment in solitude. So it's almost like a respect to the energetic environment around me, which so happens to be people. And then I find permission through those energies to then find something that's a bit more in solace for me. So where would I go? I don't know. I guess like sometimes it is nature and sometimes it is just being around certain energies that resonate with what I'm processing. In fact, sometimes there are certain people I might need to be around that really does open up the gates to environmentally friendly environments. So it's a very it could start, yeah, it may seem organic or inorganic, but to me it is very dependent on many things. But if I was to say like a clear-cut sure thing, it would be on my motorbike, to be honest. Like I'll take my bike out, or I will. Yeah, I mean it's nice to be in sort of calm environments where sound isn't too intense. So it's usually like light and sound for me is the most intense. So it might be a really nice sunny day, but yeah, just like the wind's a bit too much or it's a bit too noisy. So I'll have to find something. I'll have to get creative about that. But I do find it it's nice to be around. I've been gardening for like 6, 7, 8 years now. So yeah, I would say like being in nature in general is a good it's a good thing for me.
I've heard that from two other projectors that that keeps coming. Reflectors that I know that one had has had a couple children, and she would just go lay on the grass. Like that's how she could clear her body.
Yeah.
And another one, the one I recently introduced to her design, she said, "Yeah, I go into nature." So it seems to be one of the places that you can like. It's I don't know to just let it all drain out and go to the ground. I don't know, but the motorcycle thing sounds cool to me. Which just sounds like getting away and just being by yourself.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes being still in one place is good, but I find for me mostly it's moving through space within nature. There's a very primal energy, physical side to me that needs to be moving at the same time. So I feel like I feel a strong synergy with nature when I'm moving. So I guess the bike makes sense. Like, so when I'm going in sort of the hills, once I get away from like the highway and it's more, grass and trees on both sides, almost, if I forget the roads there and there's not too many cars, passing, I start to really tune into the nature at moving speed. It's really interesting what happens when I capture that. Yeah.
I rather like that too myself, not on a motorcycle, but in a car and take road trips. And I love it when there's nobody like I'm really on the road by myself.
And it's
Nice.
interesting that your car is your cave, kind
Right.
of.
Yeah.
So Raven has this my environment is markets, which I'm supposed to feel, in where some movement is happening, and for Raven, the environment is cave. So some people would think that it's only a house, and Raven was telling me that she's actually comfortable, riding and driving and going from, and then it's like, yeah, so the car is just like another cave.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many ways to look at the information, actually, and only through the experiences we actually confirm,
Yes.
and we find, and we have these insights. I keep having my insights about myself that otherwise I wouldn't be able to bring it out.
Mhm. Yes. And so Simon, your environment is mountain. At least that's what it shows. Do you ride uphill? Do you go up mountains when you ride? Just curious.
Try to. There's not many around here, but yeah, I am looking for it.
Interesting. Do you feel good in environments that is higher? Like, even if we talk about buildings, do you feel better when you're at a higher floor?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The wider the space, the better, really.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm gonna wait till I don't because I also looked, Simon, at your determination and cognition, which may be terms you're not familiar with yet, but they're same as mine. And you mentioned noise, and you and I are both our determinations called high sound, which
Mm,
which for which means there's a certain range of sound that is attractive and resonates with the body, like it's harmonizing. And then this in my experience, and there are a lot of sounds that don't.
yeah.
Um, and high sounds are things like, I mean, in music, guitars and flutes and whatnot. I don't really particularly like flutes. And when somebody did a reading for me about this aspect of my design, and I said, well, I really like silence. Like she said, well, we're going to talk about that because that's a conditioning thing. But I realized silence is preferable over yucky sounds. So that's,
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, ditto. Yeah,
yeah,
me.
but yeah.
Agreed.
that's
Um,
interesting.
yeah. So do you have just moving on to going back to reflectorness? Oh, yay, I didn't say the other word. Do you have a sense like of your aura being able to close down? And what that's kind of the idea is like your aura is like flaps that can be open or can close down if you need to keep energy out. Do you have do you have an experience of that? Like if you
Do,
experienced?
yeah. Yeah. So sometimes I try to turn it off when somebody it almost feels like they catch me out, like they're onto something. They can feel it's like especially when they're very close to me. This happened the other day, so I might as well explain what it felt like. It was just kind of like it's almost like they're catching on. They become distrusting towards it. I then try to turn it off, and I can't. And that's happened a couple of times. I guess the fear of what I'm feeling from them is preventing me from, uh, sort of capturing my own essence. I guess because I start their fear becomes my fear. But on a good day, yeah, I can switch it off like literally. It's quite interesting. Other time, I can source out, so I can extend my aura um, further out, so I can get wider feeler from my environment. So yeah, it's like usually it's like I don't know, like a meter or two, but I can almost make it go 10, 15 meters. I can just sort of like source out like little
Hmm.
tentacles. Um, and then when that happens, I it almost feels like I'm connecting from their, it's like a monkey branching from their energy to then the next person's energy next to them, and it's almost like an antennae that goes even further out. So it's almost like
Sounds like
I can go,
sampling.
yeah, it goes beyond what I wanted. It's like because I put the feeler out and then it just goes overflow, and then I can't stop it because it just starts. It's almost, how can I explain it? It's like, yeah, it's like, yeah, it's hard to explain. It's like I've activated a sort of like a beacon that has like say 5 points in front of me, and I only wanted those 5, but then they all get lit up, and then it will go and double that into 10, and then 20, 30. Yeah, that's kind of what it's like. Like, so
Maybe.
if I'm in a nightclub, for example, I'm at a club, pump out some, like, I'll sample and capture energy from others. I'll then take that energy and then throw it out to, like, I'll widen my aura to reflect it back on others, and it will hit that 5, and then that 5 will then turn into 10. And like I have done this many times. I'll just completely change the energy of the whole room, and it just, it's been so interesting doing that since I've been aware of human design. What better place to do it in a place of uncertainty where, there's a lot of people there that don't really know about clubbing, and it's usually their first time experience. So there's a lot of inferior. So I'm like, right, let me just get you out of your, let's just give you some good energy and, some optimism, and let's activate. And then it just doubles and then triples. And then before you know it, it accelerates in speed as well. So it starts really slow. That, the first 5 is quite slow, and then it just like snowballs. Quite
Wow.
magic.
That's amazing.
Really
To me, that's like, oh, that's maybe what they mean by community. I mean, right? Who knows? I mean, that's that, and I guess so. I mean, you're just happen not an organized community, just but wherever you are. Is it an intentional thing? Like, is it even in the closing of the aura? Do you experience as the body's just doing that, or there's
That's a good question. It feels both. Like it's intentional, and then I have no control over it once it manifests. It's very much like this is what is supposed to happen next, like kind of thing. Switching it off, I find it harder, I'll be honest. Like it is once I activate it, especially if I overreach. But I guess if I was more aligned and I wasn't so much wanting and desiring the effect of its potential, it would be more on the level of I'd be in a better position to be able to switch it off more efficiently, because there's more of a conscious observation that, like, you can't build Rome in a day kind of thing, and it's like, well, let's just stick to the foundation here. I think is so those experiences where I am a bit more grounded and conscious. It is when I put feelers out, and usually I'll switch it off for the benefit of the people that's around me, because they get overly, let's say, curious, and it becomes a bit too mysterious for them to sort of sense that reflective aspect. So it's almost like I'm going to freak them out if I do it anymore. So for your sake, I'm now going to switch it off.
wow.
Yeah. So it's
I've
not really
never
for
heard
my,
that described that way. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Because I'm not, well, it makes sense, isn't it? Because like I'm reflecting other energy around me, so it is for their benefit, and I'm not when it comes my way, it comes my way. I don't have any control over that. I can't, and I'm not the kind of person that's going to isolate forever. So it's inevitable that it happens that way.
Yeah. 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 I don't even think it's your role to isolate. It's interesting. Anna, do you have any questions that are coming?
Yeah, I have. So as I describe my personal experience with the reflector is non-personal. So sometimes you think you are dealing, like we have a habit of dealing my personality with your personality, with another personality. And with reflector, I really had this experience that I'm dealing, the personality is also changeable, and depending on the day, it can be very different. The energy can be very different. But also I felt that the personality is not really tuning into me. And there are only moments when I get the focus of the reflector, and only in those moments. And when it happens, the focus is very intense. This is also interesting, and that focus somehow helps me see myself. And then I wondered, because I couldn't get it, I couldn't really answer this question. Is it like a real relationship, or am I looking at the mirror and I'm just seeing myself? So I asked Simon about this, and he told me, like, can you share with us this thing, when people have like even conversation, or they're talking to you, and then it feels like it's not personal, and where you see that actually what they're doing is that seeing themselves.
Mm, yeah, that's a big topic. Yeah, I'm a bit my mind's gone blank on that. Um, yeah, I can't comment on that. It's too much to think about.
People
You,
looking at you and seeing their own reflection, and sometimes you even said that it makes them narcissistic at times, because
Mm,
they get more of themselves. They even can see themselves, so it's more about them than actually having something to do with you.
yeah, yeah. Again, it kind of goes back to what I said about like when they get sort of freaked out by what they're reflecting and they can't escape from it, and they might confront me in a sort of an uncomfortable way. Some people are, it depends. If they are somewhat secure in themselves, then they'll reflect back in a sort of a welcoming, open, curious way.
Oh.
So it's very much I would say more often than not, um, I would say most people are curious about themselves through me. Um, it's it happens so much that I just find it difficult. I mean, it's tricky to kind of explore that in a short space of time. Um, and so often, like when I'm socially in sort of open areas, meeting strangers, it's to make it superficial. That's quite tricky to do that because the depth of the conversation it goes into depth quite quickly. So yeah, there's so much to say about that, like
Mm.
experientially, but yeah, just mm,
you have time if you want, if there's a couple things that if you want to take a moment and look.
yeah. I mean, that it's kind of it's interesting because I create superficial situations to safeguard people, I guess, in a way. I've had to learn how to do that. Um, what would happen on the flip side would be I would go straight into the deep conversation with them, in reflection and observation, sort of go down a philosophical rabbit hole, and to save them from themselves, like I would even make the conversation so difficult for them to understand that in hope that they would be curious to understand, to be able to sort of decipher what I'm actually saying. Because I think it is quite difficult for most people to recognize themselves and see themselves in
Wow.
such a strong and profound way. So to save them from themselves, I'll play dumb, in a way, but I try to give off some sort of sophistication just to give myself some sort of sanity and to remind myself that this is just a bit of an act, and uh, they're just not ready, I guess.
So what I heard from you already, like twice, it's a different energy that you sense from people when they're themselves or when they don't know themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Um, that's quite easy to spot out because they get reactive very quickly. Um, it depends on me. It's like if I because of my sort of role model approach to things, like if I get fixed on uh wanting to lead them, then they might get quite irritated by it's almost like they want to know it for themselves, but they're not being honest to themselves the fact that they've seen what I've seen, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
It gets
people don't always
deep.
want to see. That makes sense. And I guess I don't know, this it's just coming up and I don't even know how you would answer it or what you would say, but I mean, I could see where, like how was it when you were a kid? I mean, I think I read that, that maybe alienated or invisible. I don't know what
Mm.
before you
Um,
had this knowledge and then just to live in this world.
yeah, I felt constantly misunderstood. Um, people of authority, especially where they would sort of force their ways with me, and that would put me into a complete, a place of shutdown. Like I would shut down from most forms of authority, um, and I was very good at keeping a distance from anyone, and it was necessary. Yeah, I would get overwhelmed quite easily in most situations. As a kid, my mum said that, you know, I had to be with her all the time, like with the light on, and someone had to be present. I couldn't sleep, without company, without
Mm.
energy around me. Um, and I I used to have very like intense dreams as a kid as well. Like really intense nightmares. Yeah, yeah. For me, I think I just remember mostly as a kid, I was very much um, you could say I was a bit of a scapegoat in a way. I was, things were again. I guess it's that reflector energy. It's that they're just not ready to face themselves, and they can't believe that they're being um, confronted by this little child that seems to be, you know, has this ability of, but they can't understand it. They won't believe it. As I get older and more confident, and I'm able to play out roles in ways that I'm able to act on stage. Let's say to get a strong sense of you know projection and leadership that you know gives people the assuredness that they're looking for in terms of what they want on the surface. Then they play ball with some of the deeper unknown and unseen things that they might need to they might entrust me to guide them with that once they've got what they wanted. But as a kid, I didn't know. It was just
That makes sense. I mean,
all
yeah.
coming out.
I have a couple other questions, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Do you want to, you know Simon
Yeah,
more
go for it.
directly.
I want to ask an easy one. So,
Yeah.
as you were growing up, and just like, did you notice that the people would pressure you to make decision faster? That you did you feel that you actually needed longer time to actually understand what is good for you or what you want?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did. Happened many times, and I would agree to them because everybody else was doing it in that time frame. So I felt like I was um, being unreasonable, or I was made to believe that I was being unreasonable for taking too much time. So one way or another, like my, like you say, that waiting time, it's so much longer. I guess I'm making up for that now because I've spent the last 4 years giving myself as much time as I want, and
So
I've got the money
wonderful.
to do it. So it's like, yeah, if I leave it for another 6 months, like that's fine. Like no one can tell me any different. But back then it was like, yeah, like now, everything was now. Everything was just, yeah, especially, yeah, that's another conversation. But yeah, just like very, very much, it feels like most people around me are making quick decisions.
Well, that's our culture,
Mhm.
which sucks. For me, the whole, the sales scheme that we see is really disrespectful to allowing people to take, first of all, to have their own authority, but to allow people to take their time. Are there, kind of dovetailing on that, are there, so I've noticed again, I don't really haven't thought about myself as a reflector. I have this body though, and I have noticed for some bigger decisions, I'll say, including the shifting to the name Raven, and it was naturally before I even thought about this, it seems to take me about a month. Like something will hit of, oh, this needs to shift.
Mm.
It happened like in 2009 when I thought, oh, I need to move on from this work I was engaged with. And once I had the thought, naturally took a month. I mean, again, I didn't know. Wasn't thinking of myself in that way. So I've noticed there are some decisions where it takes about a month to get to, yeah. And I don't, so, but I would imagine not all decisions, like what you're going to eat tomorrow, is it going to take you a month?
No. Yeah, no, it's not. That's yeah, it doesn't work like that. I mean, yeah, there are times where I will have to skip all sort of routine patterns. Like it almost feels like a complete shift of awareness that where my routine will be completely different and to accommodate the processing time that needs to take place. Uh, you know, to find that clarity that I'm looking for. So it's like it's a collective of aspects that wants to be arrived on, and I have to accommodate other practices to safeguard those unmet decisions. And so that it's very difficult to do that when you're not in community. Like in my case at the moment, I'm sort of having to do all those things on my own accord, and I can only be so organized to achieve those things. So what tends to happen is I'll either make quick decisions prematurely to keep up with the survival, or it will overpass the time that was needed to make that decision. Again, yeah, just because I've kind of missed that dynamic. It is much easier when I have a collective of people around me, community, to they help me make decisions that I don't need to make, that I shouldn't be making for myself, because I do need to process things over time, and they just step in, like they just know when to step in. You know, learning how to express my wants and needs more clearly, and not being afraid or feeling shame towards that, like it's shifting for sure. But I'm still learning. I'm still learning to ask for help.
Right,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things too, is to yeah, like I hear what you're saying, that to even know, let's just take the theory of the moon cycle, and sometimes it's 5 moon cycles, but to check in with people, like I hear you, that's really interesting, so that you can then kind of get data points along the way.
Mm.
Is that what it's?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we were naturally attuned to, you know, in the old days, you know, it's just, you know, to be that's why it makes sense why it came to me at the right time, because it was like it literally, you know, that's when I needed community the most, and then it just sort of gave me a very clear, you know, sort of understanding of why things were so much harder than, like they were. But you know, yeah, from a more clear and direct sort of, you know, design aspect, which, you know, it's a priceless thing.
Mm.
Yeah, it's really difficult to be a reflector without community. 100%. It's been really, really difficult. um that the whole idea of, like, you know, that we need something else, or, you know, like if I am interconnected with certain people and they leave, and I don't have anybody else around, and that space is too unfilled, it's really, 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 like, heavy.
I get it.
Yeah, it's like it feels like dying,
how do you, I
basically.
mean,
That's how bad it is.
I'm going to check two things. How's your energy? I want to just make sure we're not going over.
Oh, right now, no, I'm good. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. I was just going to ask how you're dealing with that, but I don't know if that's important.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's
This might be the question I would ask at the end, but or I'll just do it now. If you were meeting somebody who had just learned they were a reflector, what might you share with them?
I would say, wouldn't say anything. I'll just yeah, give some space and some silence. And then what would I do?
You don't, if there's nothing, it's fine. It was just one of my questions. It just came up.
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, yeah, I'd make space. I'd just make space. If I was aware of the fact that there is a reflector, I would just make space for them. I'd just give them some time to adjust to their environment, and maybe just, you know, not put my attention so much on them.
Wow, that sounds so healthy, actually. Wow. Amazing things most of the time are just like really simple. What you said is just like brilliant, exactly what the person would need, especially if it's a new environment or a new space. Sometimes we really think in very specific terms, like something is needed, you know, you need to do something. And sometimes just really letting person to adjust to the space, giving them space, and not actually fixating the attention on them. Wow. I think this is what I ask. Like, I have 3 centers defined, right? So I have 6 undefined. This is what I want in getting into an environment that I don't know. I don't want attention, and I am so happy when I have a chance to just adjust myself, sample the environment, feel how it feels to me, that I have my own space, and I can understand, like I can feel how does it vibrate to me. And if I get attention right on, or people come and like trying to do good to me in a new environment, in a new space, I just don't have even the chance to experience it properly. So yeah, sounds exactly good.
Yeah.
Places and
Yeah,
people to feel good, or they're not very great.
Mm.
Retreat, where's my cave? And even in, I've been in this, but it's 2009, so however many years that is. And I'm more sensitive as time goes on, and even when I have a good interaction. Like I went across the street to sit with my neighbor. I think I was there for a half hour, and I came back and it was like, okay, like it doesn't take
Mm,
long. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I enjoy doing, although even with I usually will go to a cafe where I have no commitment to anybody, but I can be around people.
mm,
But if the energy of the cafe is not awesome, I kind of leave feeling icky.
yeah, yeah. See, that's what I'm sort of learning to reinstate this balance of kind of self-awareness and to not be changed so much by the environment, regardless to how intense it gets. And it's
Yeah.
something that I'm really paying attention to now because it's like, obviously, there are times that you just can't, you can't do that. Like it can be so heavy that, you have to just accept and allow that to happen. But it really is important to, for me anyway, to be able to protect and when I'm, authentically, like we talk about the Teflon experience. It's like there is a way. I do have a get out of jail free card, I guess, in a way, when it comes to like muting. But that's only if I'm not attached
Mm,
to the energy. That's that. So attachment is a huge part of my deconditioning right now. It's
mhm.
because when I think that I am detached, but I'm actually not. Um, and the ego will just like steal the show, and I don't really get to tune into those senses, and it can burn me out from behind. It's convinced me that I am unaffected when I am. It's
Mm.
like, oh,
Uh-huh.
okay.
I usually have to return home to find out that I've been affected. Or a lot of the
Yeah,
time, yeah.
that's it. I mean, and then it's like if you don't have community to affirm or confirm that observation, because they are because this is the thing, when people reflect back to me, it's not as clear cut as maybe the way I reflect them. So if they're not reflectors and they're trying to give me the message, the sign that this isn't healthy for you, right? Because you can't see it right now, but I can. It doesn't quite. I have to kind of trust them with the blindfold on, because it's not quite clear enough. Their senses aren't quite there, and so it's like, so to trust, you know, the community to, give me a heads up on certain things when things are not right for me and I can't quite see it for myself. Yeah, it takes time to build those connections with those people. So I've spent the last 10 years building very deep, strong friendship connections, to make, to really try and make it as trusting as it possibly can be. So that's my remedy for, not being able to, find enough consciousness to overcome certain energies that are undesirable. And again, those attachment aspects are, it's almost inevitable that I am going to become attached to certain people out of curiosity. And so yeah, like it's the get out of jail free card is, if I do choose to switch it off, uh it's regardless to whether I feel triggered or attached, I still can do it, but there's a consequence, a karmic consequence to that.
Mhm.
It always is. If I tap out negatively, it will karmically negatively come back on me. So I don't use it like that. It doesn't make sense to use it like that. It's like, start on a high, end it on a high. That's how it's should be, I would say. Not should, but it's interesting because I don't know, is it really that to that extreme where it has to be good and good? No, I prefer it, but on the flip side, yeah, it's hard to explain. But it is a karmic thing. It really seems if I tap out without living out the process of the environment that I'm in on their terms with their design, like if I don't live it out and I skip steps, karmically it affects me. So if I think about it, it also happens on the good side. I can skip steps to create a good vibe, and that also comes crashing down.
Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
My experience of this is the word I use. It's the energy of done, which is really neutral. Like I used to skip out early. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Having nothing to do with being a generator or reflector. And I I finally had the experience of done, which it's like it has played out the arc.
Okay.
I think that's what you're also another way to say what you're saying. It's like if you leave before the arc of
Yes,
is complete.
that's it. That's it. And I know it's funny because I always feel the process of completion, even in the smallest time frame, in other, in certain energetic environments, especially when there's a lot of polarity and push and pull going on. It's almost like that something has to get played out and I can't skip steps. And if I switch off and I tap out, like it's just not like something is gonna like something more challenging is gonna come in still of that. It's and then I have to which makes sense to why I would go through the whole lunar cycle to make space for those situations. It kind of that's kind of how it is for me. It's like I have to go through it.
And I want to thank you for because I know even when you and I talk, I can kind of go into this, and then Anna comes in with, and now, which you did, and I responded to it. So thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great and that's a very interesting observation, Simon.
I hope it makes
I think,
sense. I'm trying.
see how we're, yeah. Because we all have karma, it gets being sixth line in our bodies or personalities, but the repeating of a cycle instead of letting it fully play out. Is that what you
Exactly.
mean by karma?
Yeah, it's just it's the cause and effect kind of aspect. And if I skip something through the processing of that cause and effect, it just plays out into something more complicated. Usually it's something that's more almost feels unnecessary. It's almost like but inevitable at the same time. So again, it's like I'm processing these energies. It takes time. It just takes time to process. And so now I just realized that I really am like crucially environmentally needing to be around a lighter environment to what I'm in now. But I think more, it's not so much the environment. I think it's just having the right people around me that I can find safety Because if I don't have that, then I can't safely process those energies, and then be able to go on my way with enough fluidity that I can sort of, like you say, like complete that arc process. It requires others to complete, but it's not like I could just go running at people and say, "Oh, save me from myself." Like it's not gonna. That's that. It doesn't work like that. They have no idea, like what I'm going through, or energetically what that looks like. It's just a. I mean, we could all say that about each other anyway, but uh, yeah.
I guess I'll just say I'm thinking of a couple people like where things cut off really quickly, and I'm still left with the aftershock of it. Like I still haven't finished, and it's been a couple years, 3 to 5. So I think what you're saying is, I think for all of us, no matter our design, it's a good lesson, or not a good
So
lesson, a good insight to consider.
yeah. So how do you mean? Like you've been going through a sort of a cycle phase, like
Well,
over the
I've
last
been
3 or
going
5
through the
years?
cycle phase forever, but no, I'm just thinking of a couple of people where like it got cut off before I was ready. Maybe one, it got weird and I sort of said, okay, but I'm still left with the aftermath of it. It didn't complete somewhere. It didn't actually
Yeah.
complete.
Yeah,
Um,
I hear that.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I went through something quite similar a few years back. Um, yeah, sort of, very abrupt ending to it, and having to, process all of that by myself. Yeah, it's not easy. Um, and then being able to process it transmutedly, like transmuting those forms of grievance, um, with the sort of, you know, not wanting, not desiring, but just accepting the intensity of it, but encouraging change, um, through means of succeeding in a different way, like finding a different energy, different people. I mean, connecting to people that were a lot younger than me, that were ambitiously looking at things from a completely different glass. It was just, to just switch things up, and then to, it almost felt like I was able to process that pain and grievance through a different energy field, just changing my vibration and just getting onto a different vibration of certain people, and I had to say goodbye to a few people I had to make a few sacrifices to make that jump, and that was enough for me. So it wasn't necessarily about talking about the problem or even with the person I had the issue with. It was just more about shifting the energy. It's like transmuting those, because that's all it is. Like transcendence, like comes through transmutational processes. It's sometimes that's the only way it can happen. I can't transmute my desire or my means of, I try to use the right language because I don't, it sounds like attachment if I say it in the wrong way, but it's like I can't get to that place of vibration that I'm seeking through the person that I haven't been able to break through with. So it's just
Yeah,
acceptance all the way,
that's what
isn't it?
yeah, this is what the experiment, a lot of it is like, wherever we have been attached, wherever we have been not self, it's, as we shift and become and clean out the stuff, the people in our lives will change, and some by their hand and some by ours, or some by life.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I feel like
Okay.
I've gone too deep and I'm going to make everyone start crying, including myself. But it's just my default can be.
Yeah.
It feels like we had a great talk.
I was thinking that we may have completed this arc
Mm-hmm.
for today.
Cool.
Yeah, but it feels like a really full conversation. I very much appreciate you coming, first of all, meeting you in the first place and coming on and sharing your experiences.
Cool.
Honestly and
Nice to meet you.
forthrightness without, I didn't get any, you were caught you felt maybe caught a couple times, maybe, but you just were so authentic, and I certainly appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah, no, anytime if you guys want to get more specific on things and maybe I can dialogue things a bit more clearly.
Exactly
Yeah,
how I
it'd
said.
be interesting to.
Exactly
Like,
how I said to Raven even before this talk started. I said I think it's calling for the second talk already. So because it's obvious that you can cover only certain things and in about an hour, and there is so much more depth to look at. So whenever we'll feel like comfortable again, and get together again, I think we'll have another good depth to look into.
Cool.
So I'm gonna close up the recording
Good.
so we can chat for a little bit. So thank you for listening. And again, Anna, we continue to be this really nice balance of inquiry. So I appreciate that.
Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, Raven. Nice talking to you.